Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
So let's talk about the spoilers for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. And there's a lot, but I just kind of want to... I don't know how to really approach this video on the topic because there's a lot of spoilers and I have a lot of problems with a lot of the spoilers that happen in this film. So if you clicked on this spoiler alert, I guess, even though you've already clicked on the video that says spoilers, but whatever. Let's talk about the spoilers. Let's talk about the beginning at least. Let's talk about Palpatine. That's the big caveat of this film of kind of why I went into it and went to it excited. I wanted to see what Palpatine was and how he came back. And we never got an explanation. I mean, literally, I made a joke about how Palpatine was returning, and I would say the dark side is a pathway to many abilities, some consider to be unnatural. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good line. It could have kind of explained why he returned. I didn't realize they were going to use that fucking line to explain why he returned. I mean, literally, he died in Return of the Jedi. He went down the Death Star and it exploded. He's dead. He returned in this film. How? I still don't know. Some people were telling me that it's like a Force essence transfer or something, and there literally was no line of dialogue in the film that explained how he returned. He was just simply back and used the dark side as a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural as an explanation on his return. What? Come on, man. Give me... It's situations like this where it's like, you're going to make me ask a question from the get-go of him returning. How is he returning? You not answering that is a little odd. Also, there's a concept in this film that Palpatine talks about, that he is all the Sith that have come before him. What? For me, that takes away the individualism that you have as a Sith Lord and as a Jedi, and Rey has that same thing where she's all the Jedi that came before her as well and everything. And I don't mind the idea that certain Jedi and certain Sith Lords of the past are lending their power to a certain person, a Force user, in a certain moment. But the idea that you are everyone that has come before you is really odd. Like, look at the prequel Jedi. Is Mace Windu and Qui-Gon simultaneously all the Jedi that came before them? And then with the Sith, the idea that Palpatine was going for was that Rey would kill him. Rey would kill him, and then she would become Empress Rey, and he would take over her body. Now, I like that part, where if she kills him, the secret would be that his spirit would take over her. That's not a bad idea. But the concept was that he and all the Sith Lords that had come before him would take over Rey's body when she killed him. It's stuff like that that muddies up the past of Star Wars that doesn't need to be muddied up. You just keep it simple. Why does every Sith Lord have to be a part of his body? I didn't really get that or like that, honestly. And then we get to the reveal of Rey. She is a Palpatine. Why? What and why? They use that to explain her Force powers, which I have a problem with as well. But the idea that, first of all, Palpatine fucked somebody. The Emperor had sex with a woman. That alone was just a weird concept in of itself. Like, you would really think, first of all, who is this woman that Sheev played hide the pickle with? Did he go to a brothel? Did he have a wife? I really don't know. Then he has a son. Does the son have Force powers? If he's so obsessed with Rey being his granddaughter, and that's the explanation on why she's so powerful, why wasn't his son extremely powerful and able to defeat the Jedi Hunter that killed him and whatnot? That didn't really make any sense to me at all. That Rey's a Palpatine, therefore she's powerful. And it was an exact retcon of The Last Jedi, which I didn't like The Last Jedi, but I did like the idea that Rey is a nobody, that her parents are nobody. But in this film, Kylo was like, well, while it may be true that your parents were nobodies, actually, I was lying. It was a certain point of view kind of thing. They're really Palpatine. You had a father that was related to Palpatine, and he had a wife, and they made you. It's like, why? Why is that using an explanation for her power? And that's the reason she's so powerful. Because then it takes away the concept of training. If you really want to be a powerful Jedi or a powerful Sith Lord now, here's what you need to do. You need to have Kylo Ren and Rey have sex. And then that baby, since it's going to have Skywalker and Palpatine blood, will be the most powerful child that has ever been. And that's stupid. Star Wars shouldn't be about heritage like that. You shouldn't have to be related to a different Force user in order to be able to use the Force. The Force is something that surrounds us, binds us, penetrates. I don't want to get into the Yoda spill. But still, it's something methodical. It's something unique and otherworldly. And the idea that you can get this power, and unlimited power basically, just by being related to somebody, is lazy writing. And I like The Last Jedi's concept of Rey is nobody. I didn't like the idea that she had to be related to somebody to be somebody. And that was a concept that began in The Force Awakens, and I understand you kind of have to answer that question since you're asking it of who were my parents. But The Last Jedi kind of concluded that story. It should have just left it there. And Snoke was Palpatine. That was another big reveal of Snoke dying in Episode 8. Well, it turns out Palpatine was controlling him. I didn't mind that too much. That was okay to me. I wish we could get a little bit more into that. But it was lines of dialogue where it was just kind of exposition of, oh, by the way, I controlled Snoke and Vader, and also Rey's a Palpatine. Next scene. It's like, whoa, hang on. You just revealed a lot about the sequel trilogy. Why don't we actually sit down and talk about it and kind of digest what I just learned? And the film didn't let you do that. I don't like Rey being a Palpatine. I don't like Palpatine having a kid, a wife, and a granddaughter, and he's being all the Sith that came before him. And also the way he died. I was so annoyed with the way he died because Palpatine wasn't defeated by anybody in battle. Yoda probably may have been able to beat him, but it was more or less a stalemate. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It was a stalemate. Luke couldn't beat Palpatine even in Return of the Jedi. Yoda tells him himself, he's like, you're not powerful enough to defeat the Emperor or something like that. I don't think Luke could have beat him either. But then, Rey beats him. Not just with one lightsaber, no, she's got to get two lightsabers. And you want to know how she beats him? The lightning of Palpatine that come from his fingertips, she reflects right back into his face. And Palpatine, the man who's been able to survive death, manipulate the Senate into having a war, a civil war and whatnot with the Separatists and rule the galaxy, for some reason didn't realize maybe if I would stop shooting the lightnings out of my hand, this wouldn't be reflected back into my face and I could live. I don't know why he didn't think about doing that, but he literally went out the exact same way that he got the scars in Revenge of the Sith with Mace Windu. That's lazy, stupid, and like, she didn't even... Bro, it's problems like this with the film that get me. She just reflected the lightning from him back into his face, and he just simply didn't stop. Is it like taking a piss? Once you start, you can't stop, I guess? And if that's the explanation, that's stupid as hell. It's lazy writing. He had some cool force powers, where he shot lightning into the sky, and it destroyed all the ships. But, oh no, if she uses not one, but two lightsabers, that completely mitigates all the power that he had with that lightning that literally just took out so many ships. I mean, come on. We gotta have some logic here, my friends. And there was not a lot of logic to be had in this film. Palpatine's return wasn't explained. His death was just weird. It was like watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they all melt their faces and everything. His face was melted. And he looked so weird throughout the film. I get he was like a dead guy and whatnot. I like the little machine that was attached to him that was controlling a lot of his body. That was cool. I liked him using the life force drain thing where it like took his power and it made him whole again. That was cool. He looked really cool. Palpatine was interesting, but his return just felt underwhelming. It felt like he was just there as a stepping stone for Rey and Kylo to team up. And also, since he cheated death once and came back in this film, well, who's to say he can't do it again in Star Wars Episode 10? And that was also another problem I had. Kylo Ren is basically a stepping stone for Rey. I mean, there was a lot of interesting moments with Kylo emotionally, where Leia passes away and everything, and he kind of turns, and then Rey stabs him and everything. Rey going towards like the dark side in a way and using all her anger and everything. I liked that, but that was something that should have been explored in the second film. Is she supposed to be a Jedi or not? Because Jedi, I don't know if anyone else here knows anything about Star Wars, because obviously the guys who wrote this didn't do their homework or even watch the goddamn films that came before it. But Jedi don't use anger, they don't use hate, they don't use emotion. That is all she used throughout the entire film. It's just hate, anger, and rage. Also, let's talk about the Knights of Ren. Glorified stormtroopers. I don't know why we were all so hyped up about them. They looked cool in The Force Awakens. We were all disappointed that we didn't get to see them at all in The Last Jedi. And in this film, they just kind of walk around and stalk the heroes. And it's like, okay, well, that's unique. And then they fight Kylo Ren at the end, and he gets in a fight with them. And I mean, that part was pretty cool, I'll admit. And then he gets the lightsaber from Rey with the Force FaceTime thing. That was a cool reveal, and he kind of did that little shrug. It was like, all right, yeah, I'll take it. And then he kills them all. They had no dialogue. I don't know if they said anything throughout the entire film or even the entire trilogy. They were just there because they looked cool. Yay! That's good, right? Good movie. Cool guys do cool things like stalk Chewie. That was another weird moment for me, man. The Chewie twist of him dying. Was there like a second ship? I must have missed it because I could have sworn the ship that he was on, and this must have been intentional. I mean, of course it was. It seemed like that was the ship that Rey exploded with the lightning, and that part was cool. It was just one of those things where yet again she's overpowered, where she's stopping the ship from taking off. Now, we've never seen anyone else do this in the entire films, and her and Kylo Ren, when they were fighting on the Death Star, they were doing backflips and using the Force, and when you see her, she's floating with all those rocks. It's moments like this where you're like, bro, why is she so powerful? And then the explanation of, oh, she's a Palpatine. Okay, big whoop. Why is she so powerful? Well, because she's a Palpatine, she has a lot of Force ability. Oh, so you have to be related to somebody in order to be powerful in the Force? Yeah, that's great writing, guys. That's not lazy at all. It's one of these things where it's like anyone could have written this. There's so much fan service in this that a fan could have written it, and I'm not using that as a compliment. I'm using that as this is a very predictable film. The way I thought this film was going to go is exactly how it went, which is disappointing because I used the generic, oh, they're going to team up at the end, Kylo and Rey, Ben's going to be redeemed, and they're both going to work together to take out the Emperor. And that's basically what happened, except for some reason Kylo Ren was shoved down a hole and stumbled on his way back up, and he revived Rey, and that led to a beautiful kiss between Rey and Kylo Ren. And then he died right after because he's one with the Force, and yeah, great. That was just awesome. That was absolutely fantastic. What else is there? What else is spoiler-wise is there to talk about? Because I hate thinking about this film because I genuinely do not like all the nuances and little twists and turns that it has that aren't really all that great. C-3PO's dagger thing where he gets to speak about the Sith and everything, that was cool. I didn't mind that part of it, and him getting his memory back, I like that. Not a lot of emotion. Leia. Let's talk about Leia. That's one that can come to mind. Leia dies. Of course she did. We all knew that was going to happen. The scenes that they use with Carrie Fisher, I get it. I really get it. The fact that she died in 2016 was tragic, but the scenes that they used weren't awful, but they weren't great either. Like, looking at it now, it's like I understand what they're doing, but I'm pretty confident in 10 to 20 years when people who don't really know the context of the situation, they're going to look at it and go, this looks really weird. And they weren't awkward, but they just kind of looked a little odd from time to time. And if you really watch The Force Awakens, and I guess if you have a eye for this kind of things, you can really tell that they were using scenes from The Force Awakens in this, and I know they openly said it, but like you can tell pretty well that it's just not fitting in the context of the movie. It's not bad, it didn't take me out of it. I was just like, damn, I really wish she would have lived to explain the story a little more, be in the story a lot better. She died in a very weird way too, where she just kind of lost the will to live, I guess. Yet again, I understand the situation they were in, but still, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, could have written the story a little different to explain it a little better. I really don't know how you could have possibly pulled that off. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. And I like the idea that Luke trained Leia in the ways of the Force and that she basically was a Jedi. That explains a little bit more about the sequel trilogy as a whole. I didn't like the CGI faces. It's stuff like that where it's like, hey, I'm not an idiot. Stop treating us audiences like we're stupid. I get it. One's got a green lightsaber and one's got a blue, and Luke's giving narration. I understand that these are the two people training. And then they do a little face reveal of CGI Luke and CGI Leia, and it's like, Jesus Christ, I don't need to see this. It looks bad. And also, Luke and Leia and Han are a bunch of assholes in this film. They knew that Rey was a Palpatine. How long did they know this? And why did Luke know in The Last Jedi? Because he told her, you basically are no one from nowhere, or something like that. Who are you? He kept asking her that. Who are you? But Leia knows that Rey was a Palpatine. Why didn't Leia tell her? Why didn't Luke tell her? Why did no one tell Kylo Ren, hey, Darth Vader turned back to the light? And if Kylo Ren knew, then why was he still going for that Darth Vader role? It's problems like this that I have with the film, where you think about it in context with the rest of the trilogy, and it makes absolutely no sense, and if it does, it makes the original trilogy characters seem like a bunch of assholes. You guys could have prevented so much if you would have just told Rey from the start, hey, by the way, your grandfather's Palpatine. How do you want to deal with this? Also, Luke's return. I don't know why people were, at my theater, they were cheering for it. When she threw the lightsaber and he grabbed it and he's like, that's no way to treat a Jedi weapon. Wink, wink, I'm back, baby. Like, it was that moment where my friend looked at me, because he knows I'm a big Luke fanatic, and I just rolled my fucking eyes. Cause like, bro, what'd y'all expect? Who didn't think Luke Skywalker was gonna come back as a Force ghost in this film? I mean, really? Was I supposed to be surprised and impressed that when she went to Octu that was gonna be the guy who showed up there? It seemed like the entire reason she went there was to talk to Luke. And don't get me wrong, I like Luke, but even it's like they try to retcon The Last Jedi where he's like, I gave in to fear and everything. It's like, bro, you are a Jedi Master. You were supposed to be the best Jedi of all time. What do you mean you gave in to fear in The Last Jedi? And that's the problem with The Last Jedi. That's a Rian Johnson choice that I still to this day do not agree with. But still, he comes back as a Force ghost. They use so much fan service in this film that even Leia and Luke appear as a Force ghost at the end, which was touching in a way, because I care about those people and those characters, not because it worked in the story. And also that ending part where the old lady's like, who are you? What's your last name? I'm Rey Skywalker. It's like, god damn. You know what, Rey? Me too. I'm Star Wars only. Skywalker. Lando's gonna be like, I too am Lando Skywalker. We're all Skywalkers. You're a Skywalker. Your name's Jim. You're Jim Skywalker. Anyone's a Skywalker. We're all Skywalkers. We can just say we're Skywalkers now, huh, guys? It's great storytelling, because Rey was a Palpatine, but now she's a Skywalker. Fucking A, man. It's lazy, bro. It's just lazy. Going back to Tatooine to bury the lightsabers for some significance, I guess, and it's the whole member berries. Oh, you remember Tatooine? Well, it's been sand now, a lot of sand where Luke used to live. But you remember the Jawas? Yeah, you remember. I remember. God damn it. You remember Wedge? I remember. Well, he's here too. I'll be honest, there was not a single moment in this film that made me like go into utter shock where I was like, that's awesome. The entire film I was just like, what the fuck is going on? I felt empty watching this. Palpatine's fleet, he pulls out of the ground. That was a cool shot. That was kind of cool that he calls it the Final Order. But they all are planet-destroying ships. So yet again, we're going back to the super weapon planet-destroying stuff. And also, why was Palpatine waiting all this time to pull that card? And why did he even need Kylo? Oh, he needed him to bring Rey, I guess. That's really it. But I mean, all he really needed to do was just send out the fleet, and then he would have won. I mean, they would have taken out the First Order. Does the First Order have anything that can stop a planet-killing thing? It's not Starkiller. Oh yeah, by the way, Hux is in this film. I don't know if anyone remembered that, but he was in it. He was the spy. That was a big shock. I saw that coming months ago. And then he died, which was okay. He yet again is a joke compared to what he was in The Force Awakens, which makes for a lack of intimidation in terms of villains. I wasn't intimidated by anybody, really, in this film. There wasn't a single villain where I was like, ooh, he's on screen now, something badass is gonna happen. If it was Palpatine, it's Palpatine, because he was in all the other films before, but the return of Palpatine was just not satisfying, man. The ending of this all wasn't satisfying. What was the story here, my friends? What was the narrative of the sequel trilogy? Can anybody, I'm really asking you, can anybody explain to me what the point of all this was? To show that in order to be a powerful Force user, you have to be related to somebody? That's fucking boring. You can't control who you're born as and who you're related to. Is the next rest of the saga gonna be nothing but Skywalkers and Palpatines fighting each other for eternity? And to explain the weird connection between Kylo Ren and Rey, Palpatine says you have a bond unlike seen in any generations or generations before. Like, just come on, man. It's yet again, man. It's just lazy writing that is used to explain bad ideas or just rushing the story in general. And what was up with Finn? Finn was like gonna tell Rey something before they died in the quicksand or something, and they kept using it as a constant like joke of even Poe saying, "What were you gonna tell her?" And then Finn being like, "Oh, not a good moment and whatnot." What was he gonna say? It's one of those classic things where if you got an axe in one scene in the beginning act, you need to have it in the third act. But they just took that joke and made it a joke throughout the film that could have been a really powerful character moment. And then, what is Finn like able to use the Force now? Is that something that happens? He's like, I feel Rey dead or something like that, and he feels where the right ship is at. I like the idea that Finn can use the Force, that he's Force sensitive. I really thought that was a cool aspect of it. But it was something that they just pulled out randomly in this film. It wasn't set up in The Last Jedi, it wasn't set up in The Force Awakens. It's just out of nowhere. By the way, I can feel like the ship right there is the one, and also I feel like Rey just died. Why? Because I know the Force now. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Also, I hate the close-up shots they do of Rey, where she like zooms in on her face, and then she looks up into the stars, and you hear all the Jedi. That was a decent thing, but first of all, I don't know who any of these Jedi are because it's just voices, and I can't really hear over all the other background noises. I heard Ahsoka, and I heard Hayden as Anakin. I heard Ewan McGregor. I heard Alec Guinness. But apparently, like, there was I think there was Ki-Adi-Mundi, maybe? Or, I know there was Yoda. Was Luminara one of them? Ayla Secura? I mean, there was all these Jedi that were talking. I'm pretty confident we heard Qui-Gon Jinn as well, or maybe even Kanan from Rebels. Those kind of things aren't bad, but you know what I'd like to see a little more? Them as Force Ghost at the end, where they're all just kind of looking with Luke and Leia. They're all looking out at Rey and everything. That wouldn't have been a bad thing. But we ended this like we end every trilogy, with the twin sunset and sun setting, and it looks like BB-8. Oh, that's cute. We all remember BB-8 because he's done a lot in this trilogy. I'm lying. I'm sarcastic right now. And yeah, I just didn't care about Rey. I liked Finn. Poe's okay. Poe's my favorite part. I like his little chemistry with that girl, Zori Bliss. And the the part where he's like, "Can I kiss you?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds like something a lot of guys would say. That's funny. That's a good line." And then at the end where they're like looking at each other, and he kind of gives her that like, you wanna kind of look, and I like that. I liked Poe. Poe's great. Poe's awesome. And the only emotional moment that I had in this film was when Leia died and they told Chewie, and him just kind of like, I don't even know, he's like throwing a fit, like he's breaking down. Like that was the only part that I didn't cry, but I could feel a lump in my throat where I was like, that's cutting deep, baby. So yeah, that was an emotional part. I like Jana, I think is that her name, Jaina or something, the other girl that was a stormtrooper and was talking to Finn. I liked her. I would have liked to explore her story a little more. But they had a weird ending part where Lando's like, "Oh, who are you?" And she's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Why don't we find out?" And they just kind of cut it there. I was like, okay, I don't know how to feel about that. Was like that hinting that she's his daughter, or was that hinting at that he's about to go take her behind the shed and celebrate? I mean, that really was an awkward scene to watch. I did not get this film at all. And I really wish we just hadn't had made this sequel trilogy. I mean, honestly, in hindsight, this was all pointless. I still don't have the narrative of what the point of this whole trilogy was about. Who was it about? I guess it was about Rey, and she's powerful because she's related to Palpatine. Yay! We did it! We made Star Wars. We made a generic and simple story that a fan could have made. I could have given this to a high schooler and been like, "Hey, are you taking any film classes?" "Yeah, I love Star Wars too." "Okay, write a script." This is exactly what I would have gotten. I don't know, man. I want to hear your thoughts. What did you like the film? Because I didn't hate it, but I definitely hated all the choices that it made. Well-made film, looked great. I love the Force FaceTime between Kylo Ren and Rey, and the the lightsaber battle they had on his ship and on Kamiji or whatever the fuck it's called. And it was like constant. It was like one continuous shot, like panning to the left, and it just kept cutting to one planet to the other. That was really cool. That was an awesome aspect of the film. But other than that, bro, it really just was not a great film. And I hate being that guy who always says Star Wars fans don't know shit about Star Wars or film. But it annoys me seeing fans who are like, "I love this film." And it's like, why? I love it. It's like, I saw someone put on Twitter that video of you know how Han shoots behind his back in The Force Awakens and kills the Stormtrooper, and then Kylo Ren kind of does the same thing in this film, and people are like, "Oh, I like this part." And it's like, why? Because you remember The Force Awakens? That doesn't make it a good scene because you remember things, guys. Or people think they're really smart because it's like, oh, I noticed the similarity between this one and The Force Awakens. You're not smart. It was just too on the nose. Like, any idiot could have thought of that and noticed it. Han returning was cool. I didn't mind that. Han being back. I'll admit, someone had asked a few months ago, like, if I was going to tell anybody what my inside sources, like, involving with production and everything, knew and told me about the film. Well, thank God they were right, because literally everything they said about it was what happened. Someone had told me that Han would be back in the film. He was there, and I liked that part with him and Ben Solo. That was a really touching moment. That was a good moment. And the Sith Loyalists, I knew about those and what those were basically before going into the film, and it was nice to see that they were there. They're those guys in all the black, and they're like the big crowd watching Palpatine. That would have been me, bro. I would have been like, oh, we're bringing back the Sith? Let's fucking go. We're on the Sith homeworld? Let's go. I'll be in the audience. Let's hype this up. Let's do that little chant from The Dark Knight Rises. Hey, hey, ha, ha, hey, hey, ha, ha. I didn't know what they were chanting, but I was up for it. I liked it. It was a cool vibe. But, they just kind of died, and they were just there to die, and Palpatine was just brought in to have Kylo Ren and Rey to team up against somebody so they can make out at the end, and then Kylo Ren died. I mean, the film is called The Rise of Skywalker. He is the last bloodline Skywalker, and so you would think he would be the main character. But no, Rey, who was a Palpatine, now she can just say, I'm a Skywalker, and now she's a Skywalker, so we did it, guys. We saved Star Wars. Star Wars is great because Rey's the Skywalker and can do anything and everything she wants because she's a Palpatine. And you don't need to train anymore. You just need to be related to somebody powerful in the Force so you can do whatever the fuck you want in the films. This didn't feel like a conclusion to the Skywalker saga. The only relation to the Skywalker saga that it had with Palpatine is the whole, the dark side is pathway to many. You get it. I felt no connection. This didn't feel like it was tying in all the 8 films that came before it. It felt like it was related to 4 films. The original trilogy and The Force Awakens. And no Last Jedi stuff because that was a bad film. And while I agree with it, you also have to respect the decisions that were made in that film. But maybe I'm wrong. I would like to hear your thoughts below. I'm sorry this was a long spoiler talk kind of rant thing, but I had to give you my thoughts. I didn't like... Oh, and by the way, that Sith dagger thing, well, what the fuck was that about? Okay, she uses the Sith dagger to, like, find the location of where the Wayfinder's at. How would that work? Wouldn't they build the Death Star, and that would be how you use the Sith dagger to find the location on the Death Star? The thing's crashed. How does the Sith dagger tell you where the location of that Wayfinder thing is at when it's completely in wreckage and it's destroyed? When was the Sith dagger found? When did that happen? What was that even about? I don't know. I don't know. I don't get this film. I have so many questions. I have to rewatch it, and maybe I'll have some more answers to the questions. But the film goes so fast. I mean, Kylo Ren and Rey and everything, they were talking to Palpatine, and he was explaining things, and I was like, okay, all right. Hang on. What did he say? All right, let me think about that. And then it was off onto the horses on the side of the Star Destroyer, and for some fucking reason, the people on that Star Destroyer didn't think, hey, Captain, there's a lot of horses and people on the right side of the ship. Maybe if we turn the ship on its side, I think they'll fall off. What do you think? Nope. Logic's out the window. Palpatine can't stop shooting lightning out of his fingertips because I don't know why. He just didn't think, maybe if I stop pointing my fingers at Rey as hard as I possibly can, the lightning will stop and it will stop killing me. You know what? We'll see how it goes. I'll keep pointing my fingers. Like, come on, man. Fucking think. I guess I don't know. I'm done. That was my spoiler talk. Hope you guys enjoyed it because I certainly didn't. I will see you all next time. Tell me your thoughts about the film below. I'm Star Wars only. I'm upset about this trilogy and I am just confused, annoyed, and uncomfortable. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.